Hi Year 4, welcome back. We're on day 3 of our English unit already. So we're on lesson 3 and we're still going to be doing some work from the Great Kapok Tree today. So let's have a look and see exactly what we're doing. Let me share my screen with you and you'll be able to see what the plan is for today. So here we go. Splash is going to help us out as usual. So first of all, what are we going to be learning about today? Well, the first thing that we're going to be doing today is a quick game. And once we've done our quick game, we're going to be having another look at writing some expanded noun phrases. So we're going to have a bit more practice of that from yesterday. We're going to be looking at how to punctuate speech accurately. So that's looking at the dialogue in a story, the things that the characters say. And we're going to be using the Great Kapok Tree as a model to write our own page for the book. So that's our plan for today. We're going to whiz through all of that and work really hard, and hopefully at the end of the lesson you'll have a beautiful page to go in the book and you'll be able to take it back to your school and show your teachers when you get back to school. So let's see what we need today. So we're going to need a pen or a pencil. It would be really good actually if you could have two different colours so that you can use one for your marking. So maybe a blue or black pen to write in and then a different coloured pen for doing your marking, or you could use a coloured pencil. We are going to use some lined paper or your English or literacy book, so whatever you've got at home. And we're going to start with our game. So today, I'm going to give you a little bit longer today. So it was very quick yesterday, so we're going to have a little bit of a longer, we're going to have 45 seconds, and we're going to be trying to find synonyms for said. So that means words that mean the same as said. So synonym is same name. So words that have the same meaning as said. So different words that you could use rather than saying said this person, said that person, said the other. And there were lots in the book that we've been reading. So it even used animals' ways of communicating. So rather than saying said, we had squawked when we were looking at the birds. So I want you to see how many of those type of words you can come up with. Think about speaking quietly, speaking loudly, speaking when you're really happy, speaking when you're really sad, and see how many different words you can come up with that we could use instead of the word said. So I'm going to do it as well. Are you ready? I've got my stopwatch here and I'm going to press start and we'll listen for those crickets to know that we've got to stop. Are you ready? Now, let me make sure I've got my pen in my hand. Pen in your hand. Make sure you've got your pen in your hand. I made that mistake yesterday, didn't I? Here we go. Pen in my hand. Ready, steady, go. Time's up. Make sure I stop it this time. We don't want those crickets interrupting in the middle, do we? Okay, how many did you manage to do? I'll show you what I've got first, shall I? So here are my words. How many did I manage? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, even with 45 seconds, I only managed 8 today, but they were quite long words I managed to write on my board. And sometimes it doesn't matter how many you get, it's how good the words are. And I was thinking really carefully about the words I chose today. So instead of writing said, I could use the word elaborated. And elaborated is all about giving extra details. So elaborated is a really good word to use. So if you're adding extra information, your character's giving somebody extra information, they could use the word elaborated. I've got the word cautioned. So that word is if you're warning somebody about something and saying, oh, don't do that, cautioned mum. Okay, so that's the word cautioned. I've got shrieked. So shrieked would suggest actually it's quite a high voice that's being used and it's quite high pitched and perhaps it's more of a cry. Then I've got blubbered, and I think of blubbered when I think of somebody kind of crying and talking at the same time. So, oh, please don't let me go, blubbered the boy. Okay, so that's blubbered. Then we've got shouted. So that's one to do with the volume of the way that it's said. Here we've got yelled, another one that's a loud one. Here we've got explained. So if they're trying to tell somebody and explain why they're doing something, they might have the word explained. And stated, that's kind of a very matter of fact. I stated that something was happening. So I managed to get 8. I wonder how many you got. There are lots and lots of words were said. So have a look, see how many you got. Keep a note of how many you managed. And tomorrow, we're going to try and see if we can either get more or if we can get some better choices. So we can get some more interesting words for said rather than just some really simple ones. So we'll have a little bit of a think about that. Now, there is a really good website that I quite often use when I'm preparing things for my classes called Word Central. And it's got something on it called a thesaurus, which is a book that we use to actually help us to think of synonyms for other words. So if we want a word in our writing and we want to think of a better version of that word, we might use a thesaurus in class, but you probably haven't got a thesaurus at home. So this website is really useful if you need to do some work and some writing and you want to think of a better word. So there's a box up here where you write the word that you want. So rather than writing the word said, if we want the word said, when we're using verbs, we need to use the really basic form of the verb. So the word said is the past tense for the word say. So I'm going to type in say into my thesaurus. And then you can see here I've got dictionary, thesaurus, or rhyming. And I'm going to click on thesaurus. And then I'm going to press return. And you can see here, it says the word for student thesaurus, and it says 2 entries found for say. And it says say the verb or say the noun. And I want the verb, the one that's actually somebody doing something. And then you can see it gives me a list of synonyms down here. So we've got articulate, speak, state, talk, utter, verbalize, vocalize. And then we've got lots of words which are very similar, related to that. So words like murmured or proclaimed. So that is really useful. If you're using, trying to think of some words for your writing, you can type the word into there and you can click on the dot for thesaurus. Or if you read a word in your reading and you think, I don't know what that means, it's got a dictionary, so you can look that up there as well. So that's a really useful website. If you just type in Word Central into Google, it's usually the first website that comes up. That's what it looks like. So that is a really handy tool to use, and you might want to use that when you do your writing a bit later on in the session. So today we were doing synonyms, words that mean something similar. Okay, let's move on and see what else we're going to be doing today. So our brains are all nicely warmed up now. We are now thinking back to our text, and we're going to be thinking today about the speech within the story. Okay, so when we're using speech within the story, there's some rules that we have to stick to, and we're gradually going to learn more and more of the rules over the course of this unit of work. So we're going to think about a few of them today. So first of all, to show that there is a character talking, we need to use something called inverted commas or speech marks. And they go round the bit that the character's actually saying. And you can see at the end of the line here, I've written 66 and 99. That's because at the beginning, the speech marks look like the shape of a 66. So if I show you on my board here, you can see they look like a bit like a 66. And then I've got the words that the character actually says, hello, and then I close my speech marks and they look like a 99. Can you see that? So that's the first thing that we're going to be thinking about today. Then we need a reported clause. So that is where the word said comes in, which is why we started with words to do with said today. So this is the bit that explains who it was that said that. So we might just write here to start off with, said Splash. Splash is our friendly sloth. Said Splash. And this bit here, said Splash, is our reported clause. And it's not in speech marks, okay, because it's not what the character's saying. This is the bit the character's saying, and this is our reported clause, which is outside of the speech marks, okay. Then the next rule is that we have to have a pause before the speech marks. So we have to have a pause here. So whatever the sentence was here, we would need a full stop on the end before we had our speech marks. And then you can see I haven't got a pause here. So I need to put some kind of punctuation mark in there which shows a pause. So there are all sorts of punctuation marks we could use. We could use a full stop, we could use an exclamation mark, we could use a question mark, we could use a comma. Now if the reported clause is coming after what we said, And this should really be a full stop. We use a comma because we haven't actually finished our sentence, because our sentence doesn't finish till the end of the reported clause. If this was a question, we would put a question mark in before our speech marks. If it was an exclamation, if it was wow, we would put an exclamation mark in there. Okay, so there's always a pause before each speech mark. So there'll be a pause over here from the end of the sentence before, and there'll be a pause before we close the speech marks. And the last part of punctuating speech we're going to think about today is we start direct speech with a capital letter. So here you can see there's a capital letter at the beginning because it's the first thing that the person is saying. And that only time that doesn't happen is if we then carry on with the speech here. And I'll show you that on one of the pages from the book in a second, because it has the reported clause in the middle of the actual speech. So we'll have a little look at that in a moment. So those are the 4 things that we're going to remember today. Inverted commas or speech marks around the direct speech, pauses before, a reported clause, and making sure we have a capital letter inside those speech marks. So let's have a little look now at some actual speech. So here is a part of the text from our great kapok tree. A toucan, a macaw, and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. Signor, squawked the toucan, you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. So you can see, first of all, is there speech marks around the actual things that the person is saying? So this is the toucan speaking. So you can see here, he says signor, and there's speech marks around that. And here there is, you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and seen what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. And we've got a speech mark at the end again. So here we've got the reported clause. Here is who is talking. Squawked the toucan. Okay, so we've got our reported clause in. And you can see this time the reported clause is in the middle. So the toucan actually says, Signor, you must not cut down this tree. He carries on that sentence. So just before this speech mark, we have got a comma. So we've got pause, speech mark. Then we've written our reported clause, and then we put a comma because it's carrying on. This is the same sentence. And then we're opening the speech marks again, and we haven't got a capital here because this reported clause is in the middle. You must not cut down this tree, full stop. And then we've got all the normal punctuation that we would have until the speech is finished, and then we finish with our full stop and close our speech marks. So that's what we're going to try and do today. We're going to try and make sure that all that punctuation for our speech is in the correct places. So let's have a little try. So here is our splash again, and he is saying, Signor, how much is beauty worth? So let's have a look and see how we might write that. So the first thing that we're going to do is our speech. So I'm going to write the speech first. Okay, so I'm going to open up my speech marks with a 66 shape. You can't always see the shape of speech marks when it's on a computer, but when you're doing it by hand, try and make those a 66 shape. And then we're going to write, Signor, how much is beauty worth? And that's a question. So we're going to end it this time with a question mark. There's our pause, and then we're going to have our 99. So we've got our 66 and our 99 speech marks. We have got our capital letter at the beginning of the direct speech. We have got a pause, a question mark, before we close our speech marks. And now we need to make sure we've got a reported clause. So we might write here, warned. No, that's not the right word. Warned is not the right word. How much is beautiful? I think question is a better word here, actually. He's not warning, so we need to be very careful that the synonym for said that we choose actually fits our sentence. Questioned. Signor, how much is beauty worth? Questioned the sloth. And we make sure we've got a full stop at the end. Now we could alter that because we could put our reported clause, questioned the sloth, at the beginning. So we could write the sloth questioned and then we'd have our comma, our speech marks, and we would write this in. We could also have our reported clause in the middle. So we could do a bit similar to the page where we had the toucan, where we have Señor, comma, question for sloth, and then another pause before we carry on with the speech. How much is beauty worth? And we would write our question mark and close our speech and have our reported clause in the middle. And actually, we need to be a bit careful because this word questioned, although it sounds really good there, I'm not sure it sounds quite right when this reported clause is in the middle. So, Señor, said the sloth, how much is beauty worth? Question mark, speech marks. So sometimes the word you've chosen is really good if the reported clause is at the end, but not so good if the reported clause is in the middle or at the beginning. So you have to really think about these words here, these synonyms for said as well. Okay, so we've got 5 things to think about today. That's quite a lot, isn't it? So we're going to do it one step at a time. So what I'd like you to have a go at now is see if you can have a go at that bit of speech. And we're just going to have a practice with that punctuation. So if you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what will you feast your eyes? So if you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what will you feast your eyes? So again, it's the sloth that's asking it, or you could use his name, Splash. Can you now have a go at writing that? And I want you to write it 3 different ways. I want you to write it with the reported clause at the beginning. I want you to write it with the reported clause at the end. And I want you to write it with the reported clause in the middle. So you're going to end up with 3 sentences. The speech from the character is going to be exactly the same each time. Okay, but your choice of synonym for said might change, and your punctuation is going to be a little bit different in each one, depending on where that reported clause is. Okay, so if you destroy the beauty of the rainforest, on what will you feast your eyes? So press pause and have a go at that now. Okay, how did you get on? Hopefully you've got 3 sentences. So the simplest one probably is the one actually that I've done second. And this one is the one where the reported clause is at the end. Okay, so if you get yourself a different coloured pen than the one you've written in, and you can give it a tick if you've got it right, and you can add it in or alter it if you got it wrong. Okay, so we don't need to scribble it out, we just need to alter it slightly. So hopefully you've got 66 shaped speech marks at the beginning. Then you've written, if you destroy the rainforest, comma, on what will you feast your eyes? And then you need a question mark, and you need to close your speech with a 99. And then we've got our reported clause, asked the sloth, full stop. Then here is our reported clause in the middle of the speech. So again, we've got our 66, we've got our capital letter. So you give your 66 a tick, you can give your capital letter a tick if you've got it, or make sure you've got it in there if you haven't. Okay, and we've got, if you destroy the rainforest, comma, and our 99 speech marks. Then we have got our reported clause, whispered the sloth. You can have whichever word for said you chose here. Then you've got to have a comma, because remember there's always a pause before speech marks. If you haven't got a comma in here, put that in now. Then we're opening our speech marks on what will you feast your eyes, and then another punctuation mark, and it's a question, and then we close our speech marks. Okay, so make sure you've got all of those things. Give them a tick if you've got them. If you haven't got them, add them in for me in that different coloured pen. And then finally, this one's quite often quite tricky to phrase. This is where we have the reported clause at the beginning, and they do this quite a lot in the Great Kapok Tree story. And sometimes they use a colon here, so 2 dots above each other. But I've used a comma. The sloth asked, comma, because we have to have a pause before our punctuation of our speech. Then we've done our 66. We must remember a capital letter, so make sure you've got your capital letter in there. If you destroy the rainforest, comma, on what will you feast your eyes? And our question mark to end our speech, our pause before our 99 shaped speech marks. So hopefully you've managed to do that. Don't worry if you made any mistakes, just fill them in. And as the lessons go on, again, this is something we're going to practice quite a lot over the next few days. So don't worry if you don't get it perfect first time. If you want to go back and have another look at what I've just written, you can go back and have another look and really check yours really closely. So you might want to press pause now and rewind the video slightly and just have a look at each one of my examples and compare it to yours and just see how you did. Okay, and then when you've done that, we're going to move on and look at the next thing that we're going to be doing. So let me share my screen with you again. Here we go. So we've had a little practice of our speech now. And now we're going to move on to actually think about writing our own page. So here is my writing challenge for you today. So in our book, The Great Kapok Tree, all of these different animals kept visiting the man while he was asleep. Okay. And towards the end, he walks off. And you remember, we thought he'd probably just gone and he'd made his final decision. I want you to imagine that actually he walks off a bit and he settles down near the riverbank, okay? And he has another rest. And some animals that live near the riverbank, so either on the riverbank or in the river, come over to him and give him more reasons why he shouldn't cut down the tree, to be absolutely certain he's not going to cut down this great kapok tree. So I'm going to do my example with this creature here, which is a very unusual creature. It's a beautiful dolphin, and it's actually a river dolphin, and they're like a pinky colour. So this is my river dolphin. So what we're going to do is you're going to choose your own animals, and I'll give you a choice of the animals that you want to choose in a moment. I'm going to use the river dolphin. You're going to choose your own, and we are then going to write the page for that animal. Okay, so the first thing that I want you to do in the middle of a page is you're going to write the name of your animal, okay? And I'll show you the names of the animals in a minute. So I'm going to write river dolphin in the middle. Okay. In the middle of my page. And now I want to think of some expanded noun phrases. So we're back to expanded noun phrases now. So I want to think of some expanded noun phrases to describe the dolphin. Okay, now this dolphin is really quite a clever animal. So he's very intelligent. Dolphins are really known for their intelligence. So one of the words I'm going to use, I think, is wise. They are also known for being really inquisitive. So these are to do with their behaviour. So inquisitive means they're really interested in things. They can't help themselves. They just have to come and have a look. Inquisitive. Good. I was talking in the middle of that word. I spelled it wrong. So inquisitive. They've got a very long nose. So I'm going to try and describe their nose. Actually, I'm not going to call it a nose. I'm going to call it a snout. So snout is a synonym for nose. It's another word for nose, and I'm going to call it a snout. So snout is the noun, and I think it's quite long and it's quite rounded. So I'm going to use long, rounded snout. What else can I write about? Oh, he's got something called a dorsal fin. That's this fin that sticks up and helps him to keep balance. So there's a dorsal fin. So I might want to use that in my writing. And I'm going to make a big list all the way around of any adjectives that I think might be really useful, or some prepositional phrases. So I might write things like with tiny black eyes. Might be a really good one to have for my dolphin. So what you're going to do now is you're going to choose your creature, and you're going to create a little web of adjectives and nouns to think that you're going to use to help you describe that animal. So let me show you your choice of animals. So here they are. So the first one is something called a capybara. And it's a very strange little creature, and it likes living really close to the water. So it lives on the riverbank mainly, and it likes the forest because it likes to hide in the forest, because loads and loads of creatures in the rainforest like eating capybaras. They have lots and lots of predators. And they're also hunted by humans for their skin. So humans like to, unfortunately, kill them and take off and use their skin. So they need those trees to hide in. So that will be what they'll explain to the man when they come over to them. So that's a capybara. So you might decide to do a capybara. So here's a capybara. Or you might also decide down here, this is a South American river turtle. So you might decide you want to have the South American river turtle as your character on this page, and that's fine. And this character eats dead leaves and plant material that's fallen into the water. So if the tree got cut down, they wouldn't have the food that they needed. Or you might decide to have this rather threatening black caiman. And this black caiman eats a wide variety of animals that live in and around that tree. So if that tree wasn't there, they wouldn't get the food that they needed. Or finally, you might decide to choose the giant river otter. So this is a huge version of an otter, and it's endangered because it loses its habitat a lot, and it really likes to exist under fallen logs. So it doesn't want somebody to cut down a tree and take it away like that man's going to do. It doesn't mind the rains pouring down and causing a tree to fall, because it likes to make its home underneath it. And it also likes to hide in holes in the riverbank, and it likes there to be quite a nice tree coverage over it so other creatures can't see it. So you're going to choose one of those 4 animals for me. Okay, you might need to go back and have another look at them. So our 4 animals are the capybara, the South American river turtle, the black caiman, or the giant river otter. And I want you to create a little web of any words you can think of to describe that creature. If you've got the internet, you might want to do a quick Google search of that creature. You might be able to find some videos on that creature, or some little bits of extra information that might help you in a moment to describe that creature. If you think of a really simple word to describe that creature and you want to make it a little bit more tricky, you could use the thesaurus website that we were talking about. Or you can just write your ideas straight down on your piece of paper. So you're going to press pause now. You're going to choose one of those 4 creatures, and you're going to create a nice web for me of adjectives and nouns to describe the different parts of the creature and its behaviour, okay? And when you've done that, you can then come back and we'll carry on with the next part of the video. Okay, off you go. Okay, well done. So hopefully you've managed to come up with some words to describe your creature like I have. I added a little bit more to mine. I talked about the calm, murky water that it swims in as well, and I've added that to my web. So these are my ideas. This is a bit of a plan for me, because we are going to now write our page for the book. Okay, so we're going to have a look at one of the pages, and we're going to think about how it's structured. Okay, so what you'll notice about each page is that the first sentence on the page describes the animal and the way that they move towards the man. Okay, so in this example, which is the page from the toucan, it says a toucan, a macaw and a cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. Okay, so it's describing them coming down towards the man. Okay, but I want to make sure, because we're not going to have pictures with our page, we're just going to do some writing. We're going to need to have some extra description in there to make sure that we really understand what this character's like. So I'm going to have a go with my river dolphin. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to have a look at my board that I've got in front of me as well. I'm not going to be able to show you both at the same time. I've got my board in front of me, and I'm going to have a go at doing my writing. So I'm going to have a look and go, how am I going to describe my river dolphin? So I'm going to start with the wise, inquisitive, river dolphin. And I've already managed to get wise, inquisitive dolphin. I've managed to get in there my expanded noun phrase that we practiced yesterday. Okay, now I need him to be traveling towards the man. So they are really known for their grace, dolphins. So I'm going to use the word glided, I think. So you've got to think about a really good verb to describe the movement of your creature. So glided towards the man. Okay, if you're really clever, you might be able to write a description of the man in here as well and get another expanded noun phrase in. Then I'm going to say, as he got closer, so at the moment he's going through the water, and now he's going to come out of the water. And the first thing I think you'll probably see as he comes out of the water is his nose. And I had long rounded snout in here, so I'm going to try and use that. So as he got closer, his long rounded snout, and I want to say it came out of the water, so I need a word. I'm going to use protruded. That means kind of poked out of the water, so I'm going to use protruded. And again, if you think of a simple word and you want to make it a little bit more complex, you can use your thesaurus or the website again if you want to. So protruded. And I'm going to say it's protruded, and I've got calm, murky water here. So I'm going to write out of the calm, murky water. So my creature has now moved towards the man. Okay, so that's the first bit of writing you're going to do. You're going to try and have 2 or 3 expanded noun phrases in your description of how the animal moves towards the man, ready to talk to him, okay? So you're going to go and do that now in your book using your ideas of your adjectives that you've already come up with. When you've done that, come back to the screen and we'll do the next part of the writing. We're almost there for today, so you've done really well. So let me just read mine to you once more so you've got the idea. So the wise, inquisitive river dolphin glided towards the man. As he got closer, his long rounded snout protruded out of the calm, murky water. Okay, so you need to think about whether your animal is in the water or on the riverbank, how it's moving towards the man, and a lovely description of that character moving towards him and the way that that character looks and the way the character behaves. Okay, if you can get a prepositional phrase in there as well, like with small eyes, that would be fantastic. Okay, so you're going to have a go at doing that, and then you're going to come back and I'll show you the next part. Off you go. Press pause now. Okay, how did you get on? Did you manage to do your description of your animal moving towards the man on the riverbank? That's brilliant. Now we're going to have a go at using some of that speech punctuation that we used at the start of the lesson, okay? So I want my character, my river dolphin, now to talk to the man and tell him why he can't cut down that tree, okay? And if you've forgotten why your character needs the tree, go back in the video and have a look at that page where your character was, okay? So my character is really important he doesn't chop down that tree because he doesn't want the water that he lives in contaminated. And sometimes when people come along and chop down lots of trees and they do lots of building, chemicals can go into the river. Lots of floods happen because there's no trees to stop the water flowing down and the water gets destroyed. So that's the reason that my dolphin doesn't want it. But you need to go back and have a look at why it's really important for your character. And then we're going to write the speech. So we're going to start with our 66 shaped speech marks. Okay, so here's my 66 shape. We're going to start with the word señor because that is the pattern that there is in the book. They always start with the word señor. Okay, which is a Spanish word, which means the man or Mr. And then I'm going to put our comma, I'm going to close my speech marks, and I'm going to write my reported clause. So I've chosen to have my reported clause in the middle. You can have yours at the beginning or at the end or in the middle. It's up to you. Okay, so señor, what word am I going to use instead of said? He's got quite a high-pitched voice, I imagine, a dolphin having if they could speak. He squeaked, I might have. He squeaked. Then what am I going to write? I think I'm going to write, I'll put my comma, I'll reopen my speech marks. When, I think I'm going to talk about the humans. So when humans come and chop down our precious trees. I've got a nice simple noun phrase in there, precious trees, our precious trees. This often results in our waters being contaminated. Full stop. And then I want him to really think about this. So I'm going to ask a question of the character. And this is called a rhetorical question, a question I don't want him to answer, but I want him to think about. So I'm going to say, is this fair on our wonderful waters? Oh, running out of space almost here. Question mark, and I'm going to close my speech. Right, let's have a read of that. It might not be perfect first time. I might have to have a bit of a fiddle with it, but let's have a look. So, Signor, he squeaked, when humans come and chop down our precious trees, this often results in our waters being contaminated. Full stop. Is this fair on our wonderful waters? Okay, and I've managed to get wonderful waters in here. I've managed to get precious trees. I've got a couple of simple noun phrases in there. I've managed to get my reported clause in. I've checked my speech marks and I've checked my pauses before my speech marks. So you're now going to go and write the end of your page, the speech that your animal is going to give to the man to convince him not to chop down the trees. Remember, if you've forgotten why your animal needs the trees, just zoom back in the video and have a look at the pages where your characters were that you chose, and it'll give you a reason why it relies really heavily on that tree. Okay, and you're going to be thinking about all of those things we looked at. So I'm just going to very quickly show you the things we're going to check when we have finished our piece of writing, just to remind you. So we want to make sure that there's an opening sentence that describes the animal moving towards the man, including at least one expanded noun phrase. We also want to make sure that the speech is there, persuading the man not to chop down the tree. And we want to make sure there's accurate use of speech marks, the pauses before the speech marks, and the reported clause. So they're all the things we're going to be looking for. And I know your teachers, when you go back to school and have a look at this piece of writing, they're the things they're going to be looking for too. So I want you to go off, I want you to finish your piece of writing, and then come back and join me, and we'll just have a final check and talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. Well done, you're doing a really good job so far. Off you go. Okay, well done. So hopefully you've got your page finished now. So it will have started with some description here of the animal moving towards the man. And what I'd like you to do is, with a different colour, I'd like you to underline any expanded noun phrases that you've managed to do in that opening few sentences. So it might be one sentence, it might be two sentences. Can you underline any expanded noun phrases you've got, or any simple noun phrases you've got? So go all the way down your page and with a different colour pen, underline each expanded noun phrase. So you're absolutely certain that you've got your expanded noun phrases in there. So press pause now and have a go at that. Okay, so now all your expanded noun phrases are underlined. Now it's time to check that punctuation of speech. Okay, so we're checking, and it's going to be slightly different depending on where you put your reported clause. First of all, is there a reported clause? Does it say who's talking, and is there a word for said in there to show that they're talking? Okay, so that might be at the beginning, it might be in the middle, or it might be at the end. And then we have to make sure we've got speech marks around the bits of speech. So here we've opened and closed, we've opened and we've closed. Make sure you've done that. Okay, and then go back and check the pauses before the speech marks. Is there a pause? So before this speech mark, I had a full stop, and then I've got my speech marks, and then I've got a pause and a speech mark, pause and a speech mark, pause and a speech mark. Make sure you've got that. If you have, you can give them a little tick with your different coloured pen. If you haven't, just put them in now with that other coloured pen to show that you forgot them, but you've now realised that and sorted it out, and that's absolutely fine. It's really good sometimes to go back and edit your work. It shows your teacher you've been really thinking. And then finally, just make sure that you have got the punctuation right. So you've got a capital letter at the beginning of here. If you've carried on, that you've got capital letters at the beginning of the sentences. And if you have restarted because you've got your reported clause in the middle, that this part of your speech doesn't have a capital letter at the beginning. Okay, when you've checked all of those things, we're done for today. So let's have a little look at what we're doing tomorrow. Wow, you've done some good writing today. I'm really impressed. So let's have a look. What's tomorrow got in store? So tomorrow, let's have a look. We are going to carry on using some of the skills that we've already used. So we're going to do some more work on expanded noun phrases. They're going to be really important in this whole unit of work. We're going to carry on looking at punctuating dialogue. So if you found it tricky today, we're going to have another chance. If you really think you've got it now, you're going to be able to show me that by including that in some writing. And then we're going to use a picture from the story as a stimulus to write an extra part to the story. So we're going to do a bit of story writing tomorrow. So we're going to write the next stage of the story in there. So that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow. And of course, as Splash says, we're going to start with the game. So well done. Great job today. And I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care. Have a wonderful day. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.